everybody. Welcome back to the Sad Dad Games podcast. This is another episode of Eric's Indie Corner. My name is Eric. Obviously, I'm going to be your host today. And joining me, I have a fun guest.
I'm Shan.
Shan, he's my fun guest. Who would? Oh my goodness. I was never expecting Shan. What a fun surprise.
I'm usually always.
Yeah, Shan's never here. He misses every episode. It's a brand new surprise to have Shan here on the show.
They can't record without me because I have the subscription.
Shan literally has to be on every episode. I don't know, all of you eagle-eyed fans have probably noticed that the last like 5 or 6 indie episodes, Shan's always there because I can't record on my own because I'm too cheap to pay for an extra subscription. Anywho... so for those of you who don't know, Eric's Indie Corner is a time where we take a little bit of a break from our regular content and I get to talk about some indie games that I love. And today we're going to be talking about a very cool indie game called Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair is a side-scrolling platformer. It's developed by Playtonic Games, which is, fun fact, a bunch of former Rare developers. So a bunch of devs from Rare, like the people who made Banjo-Kazooie, the old Donkey Kong Country games for Super Nintendo, Conker's Bad Fur Day, those guys, very awesome British developers. And several of them over time left and they formed their own studio, Playtonic Games, and did a Kickstarter for a game called Yooka-Laylee. And then this is the sequel to that game called Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. So lots of ex-Rare devs, which is super cool because they're very talented folks and they have this really unique kind of silly British humor that I'm a big fan of. So really enjoy this game.
They're really like the soul of Banjo-Kazooie and all of like that sassy, like awful humor, that like categorical, crass, uniquely British humor. That is them. They left immediately after Rare was acquired by Microsoft and they gutted the soul of it. Like Microsoft screwed up.
The Rare, like Microsoft's acquisition of Rare was a dark day for a lot of Rare fans because they just haven't been the same since. And I know Shan is a huge fan of Rareware and all of their old games and stuff. So
all of them. I just booted up Conker like an hour ago for the first time. I just bought it. I bought the original cart. I bought a CRT. I'm going to play it for the first time because I had like some pearl clutching parents, so there was no way I was going to get my hands on it as a kid. But I'm going to play the raunchiest of all the Rare games, and it is going to be glorious.
Shan's been super excited about his CRT TV. Our Sad Dad's group chat has been monopolized by excited texts from Shan about his new old school TV.
So I just got a PVM 20L5 Sony CRT. It is a broadcast quality best PVM ever made. The only CRTs that you can get higher quality than this would be the BVMs, and they are twice as expensive. They're in the range of $5,000, and I would never do that. That's insane, right? Maybe one day, but
but no, it's too crazy.
It's too crazy. This is crazy. So, but yeah, I had to run out and get some equipment to be able to even hook up to this thing because it doesn't have the native input of regular CRTs, and I'm gonna play Conqueror here in the next couple weeks, and it's gonna be beautiful. We're probably gonna do an episode about it, and I'm gonna experience it the way that should be, not on some janky emulator with like terrible polygons and textures, not the way that it should be.
Gross.
Yeah, ew.
Friggin' HD resolution. Blech. Only standard def for the old school games.
Yes.
All right, anyways,
all N64 games need to be through a CRT. You have to.
They do look better that way.
They look so much better.
Yeah. But anyways, back to Yooka-Laylee. So we're talking about today Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. There's a bit of a tangent, but we clearly love retro games. We love the pedigree of the developers who made this game, which is one of the reasons why I think this is such a cool game. And so just quickly, some more quick fire facts about that is so made by Playtonic Games, former Rare devs. It originally released on October 8th of 2019. So just about 5-ish years old. Pretty cool. And yeah, it's a great game. So we are going to be breaking it down a little bit. I like to separate it out into categories. We're going to talk a little bit about the story, and then we're going to talk about gameplay, and then about the visuals and sound of the game, and talk about just why it's so special. So the story, as with most mascot platformers, is pretty minimal. So this is a bit of a unique situation where we're covering the sequel first, as opposed to, so there's a game called Yooka-Laylee, which is the first in this series, and then Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, the game we're talking about today, is the sequel. And the reason I'm doing that is because Playtonic Games is currently working on a remaster or a remake of the original Yooka-Laylee, and so we're going to save Yooka-Laylee until closer when that comes out. We'll have a great time talking about that and the remaster. So when Yooka-Laylee finishes up, you defeat the bad guy, and at the beginning of this game, the bad guy, capital B, comes back, and he has made an impossible lair in order to ensnare Yooka and Laylee. So Yooka and Laylee are the duo that you play as. Yooka is a lizard, a chameleon, and then Laylee is an adorable little bat. And you play similar to kind of like how Banjo and Kazooie are pals. So he's devised this impossible lair for Yooka and Laylee to attempt to overcome. So the very first level you do is you actually play through the impossible lair, and unless you are insanely good at video games, you're meant to fail this first time. And then once you do, you meet Queen Phoebe, and Queen Phoebe tells you that capital B has captured a bunch of her subjects, and you need to go on an adventure to save them all and to conquer the impossible lair. So it's a pretty simple setup, just so that you can kind of get into some good old-fashioned platforming fun. So not a lot of crazy stuff going on with the story, but simple, effective, and gets you ready for the action. But one of the reasons why I think this game is so special is the gameplay. Gameplay in this game is you play from it's like a side scroller, so you play from a side angle, and it reminds me a lot of like the Donkey Kong Country games, particularly the newer Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze. It has a very similar vibe to those games. You have a role that's really similar to those Donkey Kong Country games, and it has like a higher difficulty level, and it just feels a lot like those old Donkey Kong Country games and even the newer ones, which I think is great. I love me some good side scrollers. I've been kind of thinking over the last little while like what my favorite kind of games are, and most of them are side scrollers. So I think I've come to the conclusion that 2D platformers might be my favorite genre of video games. I just love them. So Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair is my jam. I freaking love it.
All right. I do love this game. It's not like the most astounding platformer that's ever been made, but like it's got some fantastic unique mechanics because it's got the partner system, classic to Banjo-Kazooie if you played that. So and there are unique twists to be able to replay levels. So you finish a level and then there's like a redux version of it where they like inject, like you could play a regular way and then you could play it a water version, or play it I think you could play in like reverse or something. Like there's always like a twist on it, and you can play it with like unique abilities that you can stack up so you can choose the abilities that you want. So they have found a very unique approach to platforming where it gives a lot of player choice, and that is very empowering, and that is what is unique to this side-scrolling platformer as opposed to any standard one, which is just standard jump and run, where there's nothing else unique or special about it. So they did do something above and beyond what you could get in any other game.
Yeah, you excuse me. You touched on a lot of really good stuff there. One of my favorite things about the game is the overworld. So in between levels, the levels are represented as books. You like jump into the pages of a book, and that is, a standard side-scrolling level.
Tomes, I think they call it. Yeah.
Oh yes, tomes. That's
They're
right.
really pretentious about the word choice.
Of course, yeah.
British.
Well, they're British, so they're very hoity-toity, and they've got their British tomes. Yeah. So you find these tomes, and you jump into the tomes, and those are the standard side-scrolling levels. But all of these tomes are located in like a top-down overworld area. I don't even want to call it a map because it's a fully explorable area. That kind of reminded me in some moments of like a top-down Zelda game a little bit, just without combat. But there's a lot of like puzzle solving and unlocking new areas, like finding new abilities to unlock new areas where there are new tomes to find and new levels to play. And so there's this kind of dual system of like the overworld area where you can uncover new levels, and then you can play those side-scrolling levels. So it's a really good back and forth, and the overworld was a pleasant surprise that I was not expecting when I bought the game. I was expecting just a solid side-scroller, and I got this extra layer of like fun, unexpected gameplay on top that I really enjoyed.
It's like two games in one. You get this like casual puzzle game in the overworld that really breaks up the pacing of the game, so it allows you to just kind of take the game at your own pace. If you're getting really stressed out with the platforming, you can take a break and just kind of wander the world and unlock some puzzles and advance the stages and unlock new worlds or unlock new abilities. And so it just like it allows you to choose the pacing at which you want to uncover the world, and that it allowed me at least to engage with the game longer because my tension wasn't so high from playing difficult levels.
Yes, which is something that happens to me personally when I played Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze recently, which is a super awesome game, but it can be pretty tough. And there are some parts where I try a level like 10 times and I'm like, okay, I need to take a break. Like I'm going to play a different game. But with Impossible Lair, you can just play the same game. You're like, I need to take a break from this level. I'm going to go play a different level, or I'm going to go solve some puzzles in the overworld, or look for some little collectibles and tonics and stuff in the overworld, which was super cool. Like Shan said, it's kind of like two games in one. They're very different play styles, but they mesh together and they feed into each other really well. An example of that is I really like how, so there are 20 tomes in all, like 20 levels, but each one of them can be modified. So there's really like 40 levels. And how they do that is in the overworld. So say there's a book or a tome right here, and then you flip a switch on the other side of the map, and then a river comes down, and all of a sudden that tome is underwater. And now when you revisit that level, everything in that level is completely changed and recontextualized so that it's underwater. And maybe there's another level where there's this machine that was holding a bunch of bad guys, and then you turn on the machine and it dumps a bunch of bad guys into the pages. And so now when you go into that level, there's like 100 bad guys that are constantly chasing you. And so you have to be quick as you move through the level. And every single level has an alternate version that feels like a completely new level. So it was a clever way to reuse assets. It was a clever way to get more mileage out of things. And it was also a clever way to incorporate the overworld area into the levels as more than just like a way to take a break in between levels. They directly feed into how the levels behave. And I thought that was super cool, and was always entertained by like something that I did in the overworld. Like, oh my gosh, that's adorable. I can't believe it did that in the level. Like it's a constant delight.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't really think of very many games that like bridge two different types of games into one like this, where there's an overworld and individual worlds. Like it felt like really unique when they came out. Like it was a very innovative, creative thing, which felt like very on brand for this team, because they used to be the pioneers of creativity. Like the 90s, like Rare was they were the ones.
They were
creating.
It was like Mario, and then just under them it was like the Rare devs. They were, I mean, they did like GoldenEye, they did Perfect Dark, they did Banjo-Kazooie, they did Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's like these guys couldn't fail. They were just doing everything, innovating left and right, doing so just amazing things all the time.
Like I guess I can kind of think like Donkey Kong 64, which I guess was also them, right?
Yes, that was them too. Yeah. Donkey Kong 64 was Rare.
I guess that had like an overworld and individual worlds. This is still kind of like a unique thing where it's like it is actually two different games.
Yeah, Donkey Kong 64 had more of kind of like a Mario 64 vibe, where it was an overworld, but the gameplay style was the same as like in the levels. Really,
so it's like that concept exists, but this like really made it engaging and really filled it out. And it still felt like when I played, I was like, have I seen this before? And I think I can't even name any games now, but I feel like I've started to see it, like this game inspired others to start doing it since.
Yeah, it's a very interesting structure to the game. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I found it to be a constant delight to see how, like, to unlock new paths in the overworld and to see how that affected the levels inside the tomes. Also, on the overworld, something that blocks your path is you find unlockable coins in each level, and every once in a while there is a snake called Trouser. Think about that. He wears pants, and he is a trouser snake. There's that snarky British humor, but he will put up a literal paywall where he's like, oh, you've met my paywall, and you have to give him coins to like get past it, which is just so stupid and adorable and just such like a cheeky little. I just thought it was hilarious that he just, like, you come across this big gate and he's like, you need to give me coins, it's my paywall. And I thought that was super funny. So game is gated by literal paywalls, but you don't have to pay with actual money, so I'm here for it. Anything else to say about the gameplay before we move on to visuals and sound?
No, just like it is dripping with some of that original charisma. I invested in the original Kickstarter for the original Yooka-Laylee because like Banjo-Kazooie is my jam. It is probably the N64 game I've played the most, other than like Resident Evil 4 is probably the game that I've played the most, Banjo-Kazooie. So it's like I needed to feel the spiritual successor. I needed to feel that the devs were like coming together and recreating that. And I didn't feel like they nailed it, but they came as close as they possibly could. And they got a lot closer in the second game, even though it wasn't the collectathon that I needed it to be. So it's like I still don't feel like I've had the perfect Banjo-Kazooie game that can't be made today. And I wish I could have it, and I'll never get it, right? It's infuriating.
Not as long as Microsoft owns Rare, bunch of bums.
Yeah. But what they did do, and that I do love, is that they have recaptured the charisma as best as they could, right? Like, there's still the charm and the wit and the raunchiness, and it could still be edgier. It still feels like it's been sanded down in a way that it used to be
the
so
90s
much more
were just different.
In the 90s.
Yeah, the 90s were just different than the
There was
2020s.
no filter in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, and I like the word raunchiness because I feel like that fits it very, but like these are still, it's an E-rated game. So like it's like family friendly raunchy, like where it just kind of like again, the snake whose name is Trouser, it just like hints at these little jokes for the grown-ups, but also I play it with my kids, and any like raunchiness just goes right over their heads, and it's just this little like it's the, what are they, like the Pixar thing where, you know, Pixar movies are really, they've got lots of fun things for grown-ups as well, but they're like good stories stuff, but their kids love them as well. So I don't know if that's a great example, but you know what I mean.
They modernized the flavor.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's still not like perfect, but like they nailed it. They found the right way to make it a spiritual successor. So I still think they did it the right way. It just, there's still going to be a hole in my heart, but I still have the original game, so I can still go back to it.
Well, maybe they'll fill that hole. The Yooka-Laylee is coming out sometime this year, and maybe they'll fix all the things that. Well, and we'll talk about the original Yooka-Laylee another day. That's a whole other episode that I've got planned. But that's we'll talk about that one a whole other day, closer to when Replayly comes out. But yeah, Impossible Lair, I feel like it captures that charm of like 90s mascot platformers, and I think it's just a gosh darn good time. Mm-hmm. So moving on to visuals and sound, Visuals are very, very nice. They do kind of like a 2.5D style where all of the visuals are 3D visuals, but it's a side-scrolling game, so you play on a 2D plane. But the art is really nice in this game. They've, not anything really fancy or technically complex, but the devs clearly took their time to artistically develop levels. Like, levels feel fairly distinct from one another, and they do a good job of making things look nice. And so even without using super complex lighting, like, I played the game on Switch, and I feel like it's a very nice looking game on Switch, runs really well, and the kind of cartoony aesthetic fits Nintendo platforms really well. I love to play like cartoony platformers and things like that on Switch because it just feels like a Nintendo game. And that's probably the highest praise I can give Impossible Lair, is that it feels like an old Nintendo game. And I because those really fun light visuals.
Right, that's the true mark of an ageless game, is they capture a style and an aesthetic that is perfect for that era and that console generation, such that it will always look good. Whereas if you're going for realism, or it's going to look awful one generation into the future. And so this looks like a Nintendo, Rare always had, and this team too, they always had the ability to make their characters look Nintendo adjacent. It always felt like their mascots felt in the Nintendo universe, but be adjacent.
But they were technically Rare characters, but they felt like Nintendo characters.
They should.
You think of Banjo-Kazooie. Yeah, you think of Banjo-Kazooie, and you're like, oh yeah, Nintendo. You don't think Rare, which it might be unfortunate
Microsoft.
for Rare, but you don't think Microsoft, you think Nintendo. And I feel like this Yooka-Laylee kind of gives me the same vibe, where it's just they just feel like, their games are available on all sorts of platforms, but they feel like Nintendo characters to me, which I just, something about colorful mascots, I'm like, yeah, Nintendo, So yeah. I love the art style in this game. I think it kind of speaks to the child in me who loves those old school platformers. And then the audio design in this game is just about peerless. I love the music in this game. Surprising nobody, Eric picked a game where he loves the music
because it's Grant Kirkhope.
Yes, let me tell you why I love the music. So David Wise and Grant Kirkhope were the composers for this game, and they are absolute legends. I took the time to write down just a few of the games that they've composed soundtracks for. So we'll start. David Wise composed soundtracks for all of the Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country games. All of them. That should be enough. I could stop the list there, but I don't have to.
Standing ovation for that alone.
Standing ovation for the first time you dive into an underwater level in Donkey Kong Country and you hear that song, the slow, flowing melody, and you're like, oh man, this person's a genius. Yeah. So David Wise, all of the Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country games, as well as both of the Donkey Kong Country Returns games, as well as Battletoads, Diddy Kong Racing, and Killer Instinct. Amazing. And those were just some of the more notable ones. His pedigree is dozens of games, so many games. Same with Grant Kirkhope.
Donkey Kong, I think that alone speaks for itself, but Grant Kirkhope is my man.
Yes, and getting to Grant Kirkhope, he is amazing. So Grant Kirkhope composed a lot of his tracks for this game as well, and Grant Kirkhope is Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Donkey Kong 64, Perfect Dark, the Mario and Rabbids series, also Killer Instinct. These guys have such insane video game music pedigrees, and they're both such incredible composers, and then they come together, and this soundtrack absolutely slaps. It's amazing.
Yeah, Mario Rabbids, right? I just barely played this game, right?
First of all, that game is so much better than it has any business being.
It's so fun and so charming, but I was playing, it's just this is the first time I have felt like I'm listening to Banjo-Kazooie since I've played Banjo-Kazooie. He has such a very specific way of writing hooks and melodies that are earworms, and just you can listen to forever, and it's just that guy is a genius, and he won awards for Rabbids, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like he hasn't lost it in decades. He is. I thought he had lost it, like, because like Yooka-Laylee, I still love it, but like it didn't have the it factor of Banjo-Kazooie, and then he came back for Rabbids. I was like, oh no, he still has it.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah, I can't say enough nice things about David Wise and Grant Kirkhope. Grant Kirkhope in particular is really just wows me. I think he's an incredible composer, especially in the Mario Rabbids games. When they came to him and they were talking about like the kind of game that they wanted to, this is for Mario Rabbids, that they wanted to make music for. And then they told him it was a Mario game, and he's like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not good enough for that. And then he wrote one song, and they're like, are you kidding? This is amazing. Like, you have to do this. He's incredible. He's a very gifted composer. They both are.
Do yourself a favor if you have... I know nobody here has seen it. Do yourself a favor, get on YouTube, look up Grant Kirkhope. He does... he shreds on the guitar to Banjo-Kazooie. Like, I think it's the intro song of Banjo-Kazooie, and he like plays like a metal version of it, just like in somebody's backyard, and he just shreds. He like does a face melting rendition of it. It's just like, this guy can play anything. He's incredibly talented at all instruments.
So take our word for it. Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair has an awesome soundtrack. And as much as I love Grant Kirkhope, I have to give a special shout out to Windmill Way, which is my favorite song. And that's one composed by David Wise. And it's just so damn happy. I just love it. It's just a great song. So the whole soundtrack is spectacular. I can't say enough nice things about Grant Kirkhope and Dave Wise. They're amazing.
I'm glad that they're still partners. Like,
yeah, well, and they've collaborated on tons of stuff. Yeah, they've crossed paths a lot. Like, I think that Grant Kirkhope helped a lot with the Super Nintendo Donkey Kong games as well, and David Wise helped with Donkey Kong 64. And so there's like a lot of their paths have crossed a lot on their in their video game journeys, and so it was cool to have them together for Impossible Lair, making some awesome music. All right. Well, before I want to end with one teensy tiny thing that I only really have one complaint with this game is there. So the way that the game is structured is every time you beat a level, you rescue a bee, and the bee is added to your collection, and that gives you an extra hit that you can tank when you're attempting the Impossible Lair. And sort of like in a Breath of the Wild style, you can attempt the Impossible Lair whenever you want. You can, do 0 levels and try it again and just see if you can beat it without any extra.
Fantastic for speedrunners.
Super cool for speedrunners. If you're into that thing, it's very, very it's a cool way to be like, yeah, I want to do the final boss now. Like, you can just kind of come at it whenever you want. You can play as much of the game as you want and then go attempt the final boss. But each level that you complete makes the Impossible Lair a little bit easier. And so I do have one small complaint, but they fixed it in a patch, so don't worry. But the first time I played this game, I got to the Impossible Lair and I had all 40 bees and I couldn't beat it. I got close to the end like 4 times, and it's huge. The Impossible Lair is it's one level that's like 20 minutes long. It's a very long level. And if you die, you have to start all the way over. And so I tried it, I think 4 times, and then I was like, I'm not having fun. I don't want to do it anymore. And then a little bit farther down the road, I'm not exactly sure how far, they added a patch where there were checkpoints in the Impossible Lair that were like, before you make a weird face, let me explain it.
So this is infuriating to me because I've played this level like 20 times and I've never beat the Impossible Lair.
So this will make it possible. The Impossible Lair becomes possible. So there are checkpoints,
as Barney Stinson would say.
Impossible. So they have checkpoints throughout where it will save your progress and the amount of bees that you have. So if you do the first half of it and you lose 20 bees, but then you die in the last half, it doesn't kick you all the way back to the beginning. It kicks you back to the last checkpoint with having lost 20 bees. And so I think that that's a good balance of making the Impossible Lair difficult. And you can start all the way over at the beginning and try to lose less bees if you want to. But the first time I played it, it was mostly just fuel for my frustration. I didn't have a good time with the last level. And then they introduced the patch, and I finally was able to beat the game because I didn't have to start all the way over at the beginning every time. And so that's one of the joys of modern gaming, is sometimes they patch out things that frustrate you.
Yeah, I was not having fun either. I've still never beat the game. And it was like, okay, so I have to play the Impossible Lair for 15 minutes just to see if I can make that one jump. Oh, I failed it for the 5th time in a row. Let me go all the way back and fail again.
Not fun game design. I'm not a fan of that kind of test. It's the same thing where it's like when they have really long, and not in this game, but like in games in general, where they have like a really long boss battle and there's multiple phases and they don't put checkpoints in between the phases. I hate that crap. Mm-hmm. That drives me crazy. Like I'm not proving my skill. You're just wasting my time. Like, and that's how I felt with the Impossible Lair. It's like I'm not having fun. You're just wasting my time. But then they added the checkpoints, and now it's a delight. Simple fix. And play the Impossible Lair. It's a great game with fun times and excellent music made by cool people.
You remember Adventure Time when like he's like afraid of the ocean, and
yes, and the one little drop gets on his face.
Yeah, and like that apparition like says like it was going to tell him something, and then it goes away, and he's like, well, that's going to bother me forever.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I had to put the game down, like right at the end, having never beat the Impossible Lair. It's like, I'm at 99%.
I hate it.
Screw this nonsense. I want to play this game because I want to appreciate what they did. And I named my dog after this game, right? Like, my dog's name is Laylee, and I want to appreciate it. I love these people, and I just put it down. And I was like, well, that's gonna bother me forever.
It's gonna bother me forever. I have a list on my phone that I keep on my phone of all of the games that I've beaten, and so I hate that when I'll play most of a game and I just can't quite finish it, because then I can't put it on my list, and then it makes my brain itch, and I hate it. Like.
Yeah, you probably still remember like games from the 90s or early 2000s. Like, I know the games that I never beat.
Yeah.
And it will haunt you.
And it sits with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Impossible Lair, until just a couple months ago for me, was one of those games. I was like, I'm never going to beat it. And then a few months ago, I was like, I wonder if they fixed it. And they did. And I finally beat it. So you can go back, Shan. You can do it. I believe in you. It's possible now.
I was really bad at the Impossible Lair.
Yeah. It's a hard game. Yeah. It's very, very fun. It's not quite as hard as some of the more punishing, like old school Donkey Kong Country games, but none of the Donkey Kong Country games have a 20-minute final level. So
you're saying like every time you get to a save point, you have all the bees that you have accrued up until that point?
So yeah. So example, you have a total of, like, if you beat all of the levels and all of their flip sides, then you have 40 total bees, so you can take 40 hits, right? So you say you lose 5 bees on your way to the first checkpoint, and then you die after that checkpoint 35 times, and so you lose the rest of your bees. It'll start you back at that checkpoint with 35 bees. So okay. It keeps track of how many bees you've lost up to that checkpoint, and will start you back at that point.
Okay, so like if you want to have a perfect run between checkpoints, you would probably be like, oh, I see the checkpoint. I want to have all my bees going into that checkpoint. I'm going to jump off the ledge and die.
Yeah.
And keep doing this section until I have all my bees. Then I'm going to cross that checkpoint. So I can keep pushing with all my bees across every checkpoint until the end.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah,
that's what I need to do, because I need to have them all for the end, because I'll never be good enough.
I was going to say, really what I did is I got as far as I could, but it was nice because it lets you play specific parts over and over again without having to go. So like if I got to a certain part and I had 20 bees left, and I had a really hard time with that part, when I wasted all the rest of my 20 bees, I would get kicked back to that part, and and not have to go all the way back to the beginning. So it was nice to be able to beat the level in chunks instead of having to do it all at once, because I'm just not good enough for it, I guess. So
not good enough.
Not good enough. All right, everybody. So Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair will run you between probably about 12 and 15 hours, maybe around 20-ish. If you're a completionist, you want to get all the coins and all the tonics, all the little collectibles and stuff, you could probably squeeze it up to 20, maybe 25 hours if you're bad at games.
For me, it was longer because I was a little bad at some of the overworld puzzles.
Yeah, so it depends. It depends on your skill level, yeah. But so 12 to, 20-ish hours depending. And it is available on Windows, Mac OS, PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, and it retails for $29.99. So it's a great game. Y'all should check it out. Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. It's good stuff. That's it. We did it. That's the thumbs up. That's the whole episode. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to listen into our regular episodes every Thursday. We air our regular series every Monday. We air episodes from our regular series. Every Thursday, we air episodes of Eric's Indie Corner. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our podcast on YouTube, also Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're going to be doing some short form videos pretty soon here, little clips of our stuff. So follow us there as well. I also, every single day on Instagram, I post my Dadish scores. So if you want to challenge my Dadish scores and beat them, you probably can, because I'm only sort of good at Dadish. So tell me your scores, beat me, do better than me, I dare you. Yeah. All right, everybody, thank you for listening. We had a great time chatting about some of our favorite indie games today, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Outro. Bleepity-doof, bleepity, bloopity-blow.